Dressed up in my garment, feeling no shame. Sun is up and making me feel whole again. Me, myself, and I play in the right game. Take your hesitations, kick it like a ball. Use your intuition, start with something small. Jump into the water, ride that roller coaster. Listen closer, take off all your busters. That's another getting closer, come on. Come up to the highway. Don't forget your mind, babe. Take it up on Sunday, Sunday. Come up to the highway. Don't forget your mind, babe. Take it up on Sunday, Sunday. Focus on your heart to make it pop again. Go deeper on your love and let it all begin. Open up a window, let the light go in. You yourself and I are here to win. Come up to the highway. Don't forget your mind, babe. Take it up on Sunday, Sunday.
going. Wasn't that amazing? Give it up for Raquel Williams. Her mom, Teresa, came today. It's so sweet. Raquel had to leave because she has to go perform in the Book of Mormon, tiny show on Broadway. So we were so glad to have her. And accompanying her is the pianist, composer, lyricist, and music director, Maria Caputo. Give them another huge round of applause. I can't tell you how lucky I feel that Broadway has come to Climate Week to really help us celebrate one another. It's really just meant so much to me all week. And so you'll see more Broadway performers later this afternoon and tomorrow. So let me tell you about why we're here. Today we're talking about food as medicine and eating for health. And we're talking about this because we're facing a nutrition crisis today. 2.6 billion people in the world can't afford a healthy diet. Nearly half of all deaths among children under 5 are linked to undernutrition. And at the same time, 2.5 billion adults and 390 million children ages 5 through 19 are overweight. In the United States, roughly half of all Americans have diet-related chronic diseases like hypertension, diabetes, or heart disease. And according to the Food as Medicine Institute, lack of good nutrition is the leading driver of poor health conditions. But we know that there are solutions out there that work. Programs like produce prescription boxes and medically tailored meals connect eaters with nutritious food while helping them manage their illnesses. Universal school meal programs, like we talked about this morning, can change how young people have access to, a healthy breakfast and a healthy lunch. And school gardens can increase children's access to fresh produce while giving them a greater appreciation for food that nourishes them and the soil. And when we prioritize local sourcing of food grown using regenerative and sustainable practices, these solutions are also better for farmers and the planet. And that's, if we can't make this economically work, it won't work at all. It's also important to understand that food as medicine is not a new concept. White folks like me didn't invent it. It's something that people have been using for generations, indigenous peoples, all kinds of different cultures. And it's really important to remember that and respect and honor that. I am so excited to be here. And before we dive in, I want to thank our partners. A big thanks to the Sprouts Healthy Communities Foundation, especially Lyndsey Waugh, Courtney Schraben-Hake, and Brandon Lombardi. Please give them a huge round of applause. We have incredible hosts here at WNYC. Give them a round of applause, please. Our culinary partner, Great Performances, has been extraordinary this week, providing really delicious, sustainably grown meals for everyone and doing it with such, they're just the kindest people in the world. Give them a round of applause. A big thanks to Arva, who will be supporting our reception later. Before we begin, you can give them a round of applause too. Before we begin, I want to get a little bit of housekeeping out of the way. Food tank panels, if you know me, run on time. And they do that because I cut people off. If I do that, forgive me later. It's meant to be kind because I want to hear from as many of you as possible. So thank you for that. And if you're tuning in online, thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to all of you in the room. We hope you'll share the moments that stand out for you using the hashtag NYC. Oh, nope. Say it again. The hashtag Climate Week NYC. It's Thursday, everyone. It's Thursday. You can also reach me directly at Danielle@foodtank.com, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Bernie's checking my email. So I'm now, and I didn't shout him out before. Bernie Pollock, my co-founder. Give him a round of applause. He's the reason that Broadway is here, and he's made this such a joyful experience for me and so many of us. So I'm now excited to introduce Lyndsey Waugh, the Executive Director of the Sprouts Healthy Communities Foundation, to help me set the stage for today's conversations. Thank you for being here. Thanks for everything.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's been it's my first time at Climate Week, so I've been here for 4 days, and I've had the pleasure of attending a few different programs hosted here by Food Tank, and I just want to say to everyone who's here and who cares about these issues, thank you for who you are and how you show up and how you continue to show up. We're such a diverse mix, from nonprofits to professionals working in the space, retailers, brands, and to take on the issues that are here today, it's going to take all of us working together.
Absolutely. And I want to thank the foundation again, but I also want to know why this issue of food as medicine is so important to the foundation.
Sure. So Sprouts Farmers Market is a natural and organic retailer. We operate in about 24 states across the country, and our purpose as a company is helping people live and eat better. And so 10 years ago, we established the Sprouts Healthy Communities Foundation that's 100% focused on how we can help kids, adults, and communities have greater access to nutrition education and greater access to nutritious food. And so as we were getting started, we were focusing initially on school garden-based education. And the reason that we did that is kids spend about the equivalent of a full-time job in school each week, right? And so if we can meet them where they're at, get them excited, hands-on, enthusiastic, connected, seeing the benefits of growing and tasting food that's come alive under their leadership, with them, being the one to tend to it, we know that it would make a difference in how they related to eating healthier fruits and vegetables. And so after about 10 years of doing that work, today we're in 10,000 schools. We have over 1,000 active nonprofit partners, and including a few that are here in the room with us today. And now that we've established that base, we're continuing to grow with the kids that we've, been working with in school by bringing that programming across the lifespan. So what you're going to see as you continue to engage with Sprouts is you're going to see us working in community centers, looking how we can leverage the resources that we have to support healthier food procurement, how we can show up in the communities and with the people that are most vulnerable and treat them with dignity to give them the same access that all of us want. And I would be remiss to not say, Sprouts team members across all of our stores, they're deeply passionate about this. So this isn't just the foundation working to the side. We have the true support of the boots on the ground team members, our store managers that are now working to actually create a program where they can bring students in from schools to do grocery store tours. They're out volunteering, and so it's truly core to who we are.
It really is core to who you are. I'm glad you brought up dignity. We've been hearing that, throughout Climate Week, that we have to bring dignity to whatever we're doing. I wonder how you feel about the energy that's come about over the last few years about food as medicine.
Well, you said it at the start of the conversation. Food as medicine is not a new topic, and through the different ways that it's showing up today, I think what we're seeing is it's become more commonplace for people to be put the word food as medicine to the side for a moment. It's really people are more connected with how food makes them feel. So what you're eating, mindful eating, how you get connected, the joy of being around the table, having a meal. And I think that what's unique from where our foundation sits is we get to have one foot into the retail space through our relationship with Sprouts, but our other foot is square in the community. And so what we're seeing, if you imagine, we're half the country, right, is like our service area that we're in. And we're seeing this same momentum starting in California, as we're seeing in Florida and Texas and other places where you're seeing nonprofits that wouldn't have been working together 5 years ago, that because of the times that we're in today, are highly motivated to come together. You have philanthropy, for-profit, nonprofit, school, government, all sitting around the table and say, we just don't have time to keep kicking this can down the road. And so for us, what I get excited about as we look at today's panel is the diversity of perspectives and the brilliance that we create when we're all together. We use the term creating constellations, not stars. And in a moment like this, I think that's what really shines bright.
Absolutely. I wonder what you're most excited about today. Anything stand out for you?
Well, the panel that we have, the many people that will be on stage today are brilliant, passionate, inspiring individuals. So I'm excited to hear from them. But the other piece I'm excited about, and it's going to be a challenge out to all of you, and Danny, you've heard me say this before, So often as adults, we talk about the issues, we talk about kids, we talk about the next generation. I want to challenge you to engage them in the conversation. And so what would it look like if everyone in this room, or listening or tuning in online, were to go back tonight and pick out one thing from this panel that speaks to you and have a conversation with a young person about it? Because we would be remiss to think that the future voters, the future contributors, the kids that are there seeing this swirl around them, they care. And I think it's our responsibility, whether you have children or not, whether you're a teacher or not, to play a role in helping those kids see themselves as part of this work.
That's really good advice. Let's create constellations, everyone, today. Thank you, Lyndsey Waugh.
Thank you.
In this next panel, we're going to talk about what we're seeing in the food as medicine space and where we still need to go. Let me introduce Charles Platkin, the Executive Director of the Center for Food as Medicine and Longevity and a distinguished lecturer emeritus at Hunter College. Give him a round of applause. Nice to see you. Dr. Geeta Maker-Clark, the Director of Integrative Nutrition and Advocacy at Endeavor Health and Co-Director of Culinary Medicine for the Pritzker School of Medicine at the University of Chicago. Phew. Got through it. A-dae Romero-Briones is the Vice President of Policy and Research at the First Nations Development Institute. Round of applause for everyone, please. And Dr. Robert Graham is a physician, chef, and co-founder of Fresh Med NYC. Give him a round of applause. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. A-dae, I'd like to start with you. You and I have talked about this quite a bit because you're a trusted and valued advisor to food tanks, so I depend on you. We've talked about how the idea of food as medicine has become increasingly clinical and individualistic, and why, that we're overlooking so much as a result of that. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Can folks hear her?
Can you hear me? Okay, yes. Well, thank you for that question. I think individualistic is the appropriate word here. I work with tribal communities, and one of the most critical ideas around food, around community, especially around health, is the idea that health is not only dependent on just what one person does, but it's dependent on what the community around you does and how healthy your environment is. And so when you isolate those things, individuals seem to be in control of everything they do when it comes to health.
Right.
But really, there's so many things around you, including environment, including your friends, including your family,
Right.
including your community, that have so much impact on on how healthy you are, but how you define health in general. And in America, when everything becomes an individual action or even an individual fault, we really lose sight of all of these other impacts that create a healthy person
Yeah.
and therefore a healthy community and a healthy environment.
And there's so much blame and shame involved too, and I think that's, we have to think of it as a community issue or problem, or, people are going to feel very bad about themselves.
Absolutely. When you think about, and I use this example a lot in my community, if one person is sick, it's an issue. But if you have 5 people that are sick, it's the idea is like you have to look at the systematic inputs that create that unhealthy 5 people when it's like 10 people. And now we have like epidemics. And at some point you have to look at systematic triggers and issues that are affecting not only one person, but entire communities.
Absolutely. A-dae, I'm going to ask this question to you and Charles. And it's, Charles, starting with you, could you provide some context to help us understand how the food as medicine movement has evolved and what has contributed to the shift that we're kind of seeing today?
So I guess I would talk specifically about that food as medicine is not really new. We've been using it actually in our own society for a very long time. Think of scurvy and vitamin C, rickets, all the things, beriberi, all these things have been solved by food as medicine, and they still are today. They're common, right? We have infused milk and things like that with vitamin D, and enriched foods. And so I think that food as medicine, there was a sort of a divide that took place when surgery and medicine started to evolve, and it became kind of the wealthy started to move toward the surgery and the pharma, and the poor kept saying with the food is medicine. And then I think we realized in the last, let's say, 10 years or 15 or 20 years that, hey, well, there's a lot to this that we should be thinking about. And now it's sort of merging. And I think that the merging is really important. We don't want to do without pharma, because pharma is very important. We don't want to do without physicians and all the great treatments that have evolved over the last 100 years, but food as medicine plays an incredible role. The last 2 years, all I've been doing is researching how food and dietary supplements can impact disease and treatment, and it's remarkable. And I was just talking about that with Marion Essel right before I got on here. So I think that this is really important to understand so that we can move forward and merge everything and converge and really come to some great new encounters with medicine.
Sure. A-dae, do you want to talk about how we need to recognize sort of, the wrongs, though, that have happened, and especially in our tribal and native communities because of this sort of clinical part of medicine and food?
Yeah, I think when we focus solely on Western ideas about what health and medicine and we lose a whole, like Charles said, this is a very old concept, and there's so many paradigms and people in this world who have very succinct ideas, old ideas about what health is and about how to keep a person healthy. But when we put those solely in a Western paradigm, we lose a lot of knowledge, and we teach ourselves not to see some of the solutions that people have been implementing for generations.
Absolutely.
Very
They
well
need to
said.
be honored and recognized. Charles, do you want to?
No, I was just saying that's exactly well said,
Yeah.
and so many people have been damaged by that
Yeah.
convergence, the lack of convergence. I think that it's important to recognize that.
Absolutely. Geeta, if I can turn to you, for food as medicine to be community focused and have a community impact, can you talk about the kind of training that is really necessary in healthcare settings to be able to do that, to understand people and where they're coming from?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think to build on what A-dae is saying is there's an incredible and undue burden put on the individual right now, especially in American society, to be responsible for our own health, right? And like you mentioned, there's a lot of shame and blame that comes from that if you're feeling like, well, I'm not doing a good job at the things I know I'm supposed to be doing, and this is entirely my responsibility to do it. The goal is collective care. Right? The goal is collective liberation for all of us, truly. That's the real goal, I would say, of this food as medicine movement. We've lost our way a bit. I'm very happy the movement is a movement. I've been at this for a very long time, and it's so wonderful to have a panel like this and to have colleagues in the field and not be the only person who's kind of talking about it, which we've all sort of been there like little lonely wolves in our institutions. However, I think the movement has been a bit reductionist in the sense that it's still putting a lot of undue responsibility on that individual and it's more consumer driven, right? The wellness industry has sort of like taken hold of food as medicine.
Yeah.
And so from the education perspective where I sit and the community health perspective, I feel like we need to reclaim this philosophy as our own in our communities and train our physicians and train our children through education to have soil that they can grow from that's based on knowledge, because there is no home economics anymore, right? Like I had home ec. I don't know how many of you had home ec. A few people in there. Like I might have been the last class of home ec in high school. Like we learned how to sew a quilt, like what? But we learned how to cook some things for ourselves, and I feel like kids don't have that kind of knowledge anymore. They don't have that ancestral, traditional wisdom that food as medicine is based on. So in culinary medicine, we are training medical students, to understand that food is a medicine, but also how to talk about it. What's the vocabulary to speak with patients who have multiple chronic diseases, who have cancer, about how they can use food as a medicine in practical translational ways, not just in like vague, you should eat more fruits and vegetable ways that everybody knows.
Yeah.
So, and then I also work in Chicago Public Schools because I do think that children really need to have this information.
Sure.
And it's astonishing how brilliant kids are. Like they get it.
Yeah.
And so it's very rewarding to work with kids. And, I'll give you an example of teaching them about the bliss point, right? Which is a term that has been created by food scientists that makes a processed food very hard to put down, right? So you open your bag of chips and you're like, I'm just gonna have a couple. And then the chips, the whole bag of chips is gone, right? In like 15 minutes. How did that happen? How did that happen? That's not your personal failing. That's because the bliss point was baked into those foods in a lab. So if you teach kids that, I'm not saying don't eat chips, but I'm saying now you know why it's really hard to put the bag down, and they get it. And so there's power in that.
There is power.
And that's the key.
Yeah, and it's
power back to the community.
Yeah, that collective liberation you talked about. Robert, if I can turn to you, food as medicine is no doubt gaining so much support, but there are still barriers and obstacles from it becoming more widely adopted. I wonder what you're seeing, as doctors have to jump through hoops to get, prescription programs to their patients.
Well, I think, the way I like to look at it is I like to look at it as a microenvironment and a macroenvironment, right? So the macroenvironment is everything we're talking about. The community health, public health, and public health is best when it's silent, right? When it's just sitting there and no one knows that it's being activated, right? Because it's just the default. But yet, the way we enter medicine, it's very individualistic, right? And so to change, I think we should do everything at the same time. It's really it's a food system transformation and a health system transformation that has to happen, right? While honoring, our traditional ways, ancient wisdom, but at the same time, we have to find a way, and I think a lot of what's happening now in the food as medicine movement is really focusing on that microenvironment. And as much as I love and hate literally prescribing food as medicine with this movement, I believe it has to start there, and I've been a big believer in educating, starting culinary medicine way back in the day, before it was called culinary medicine. But the end user is the patient. And it takes so long for first to educate the physician, to change the curricula, and then translate that knowledge to the patient.
Yeah.
While the entire health system, there's geniuses in nutrition that's been around for a long time called registered dietitians, right? And so the way I feel that we have to do this is, if you have a chronic disease or if you have a non-communicable chronic disease that is diet-related, which we know is most of what we're facing today's epidemic, refer them to dietitians. And at the same time...
A lot of dietitians in the audience.
Yes. So more coverage for registered dietitians. And at the same time, start prescribing medically tailored meals, produce prescription boxes. But the problem we have in today's society is that the health system that we're working within doesn't have the workflow to support it.
Yeah.
Right? There's not a button. There's not a button that I can press to say, diabetic, uncontrolled A1C, refer to dietitian. You can do that. Covered by insurance, and then medically tailored meals for a certain time, transition them to produce prescriptions. We don't have that, so it falls on many companies and institutions, nonprofits, to build that system.
Yeah.
And man, it's hard to build a system within a very sort of prescriptive system.
Yeah, and I imagine it's become even harder. I'm going to turn to Charles for a minute, but you can also talk about this question. Geeta talked about the wellness industry or the wellness community, but it's also an industry and the growth of that, especially right now. There is so much misinformation out there, and I wonder how you're all trying to sort of counteract that. Charles?
Yeah, so I think that one of the things that I talk about a lot is social media, TikTok, and I'm sure you're all familiar with it. Coming home and seeing your daughter drinking chlorophyll, and saying it's going to cure acne or whatever it might be, knowing that this is my space, it's really an insult, and not asking me specifically. And then realizing that, wow, there's so much misinformation out there. So one of the reasons why I formed the Center for Food as Medicine and Longevity is we have 17 PhDs working on creating literature reviews that'll be updated every week once we launch, with starting with 40 different disease states, and it'll be a resource for physicians, for dietitians to do the work. We do the work so they don't have to, basically, right? And that's really what our objective is. And then eventually, once I get funding, we'll add things like having social media monitoring, right? When we see disinformation, be able to intercede immediately. Sure. And those are the kinds of things I see in the next 3 to 5 years for us working on, and really trying to dispel the myths that are out there that are very confusing, even for experts.
Yeah, absolutely. Geeta, I want you to touch on that point, but I also want you to talk about why then because of this misinformation that's out there, it's so important for people in healthcare to have more knowledge about food as medicine and nutrition, because right now, it's getting better, but right now medical schools don't have a lot of training around nutrition and food as medicine.
That's right. So nutrition education has been absent in most of medical education for the last 40 or 50 years. Only in the advent of this sort of culinary medicine movement of the last 10 years or so are we starting to see even a couple of hours start to be infused in. And of course, as Robert alluded to, the goal is not to have doctors be nutritionists. That's what nutritionists are for. But your doctor still needs to know something about medicine, about food as medicine, and that's not something that we were necessarily trained in. So I do think that piece is vital, that we reintroduce nutrition as an extremely important and vital part of health education, just as important as pathology and histology and every rotation that we do in medical school. And that is happening. We have 80 academic medical centers in the country that offer culinary medicine across this country, and it's also spread into much of Europe now too. So there's good news. But I will say that the advent, I'm going to call it the advent of wellness influencers, is really challenging because, you know, most of my practice is spending time dispelling information that patients are bringing to me. You know, like, what I'm taking this, or I started this diet, and like, what do you think about it? And I have to take some time to like really look at what they're doing and sort of, you know, discern which of it is helpful and which of it could be harmful. And that's the piece, is like, it's fine if it's neutral, but a lot of it's harmful. That's being peddled by people who don't have the information, and they're doing it irresponsibly in ways that they have no liability for. Whereas like Charles and me and Robert have a lot of liability when we say the wrong things to patients. And I don't mean even just like financial liability. I mean like personal. It's like, this is what we're in this business, is trying to help people be better, right? So we're never going to say something that we think is going to harm somebody. So it is a really particular challenge right now, and I think the responsibility for, again, the individual is very heavy to try to make that discernment, but I still do believe that your doctor is a great place to go with your questions.
With that, Robert,
I really do.
Yeah, but all not doctors, I got to say, not all doctors are created equal, right? And so,
You know, they're all like Robert.
Yeah, well, you and Geeta, you know, like education, training matters. Science matters, right? And so we've spent a lot of time in my career, right? I'm speaking on behalf of. We spent a lot of time learning, crafting, educating, and again, it's hard, right? Because the news cycle is so fast, but to your point, like, there are certain things that have always been true, right? Eat more plants. I think we have to sort of simplify the message as well, and not sort of get to this point that the N of one, you know, it helped me, so that it's going to help everyone, right? And so we rely on public health. We rely on community health. We rely on ancestral health. There's a reason why certain cultures gravitate to a certain specific food, because it's been part of their ancestor, part of their culture. And I think we've stepped away from that and really focusing on the now and the N of one, and not the community that we've been talking about. And again, look for doctors that are trained in lifestyle medicine, culinary medicine. There are trainings now, certificates, functional medicine, integrative medicine. There are doctors now that have taken extra courses beyond medical school to inform themselves on how to best deliver the type of care that my mother, my wife, my family wants. And I think we have to sort of advocate for ourselves and not look, you know, oftentimes I joke, one more thing I have to say, we spend more time thinking about where we're going to dinner than who your doctor is.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But this cultural aspect that you're talking about goes back to where we started with this conversation today. I'm wondering if we can help communities ensure control of their own food systems. How can this, not just build community health, but what we all want and why we're here at Climate Week, which is planetary health as well?
I think at some point we have to recognize that the ideas about health and about medicine should not be defined by health, by wellness social advocates, or whatever you may call them. In indigenous cultures, we have the same thing. At one time, it was the medical community who kind of takes indigenous ideas about what health, knowledge, and medicine is, and then maybe appropriates it. I mean, it's a similar process that seems to be happening over and over again. At some point, as a community or whatever community you may be from, we have to take some control over the definitions about health, about medicine, and about what we do as a community collective about some of these things.
Right, and the semantics really matter. The language really matters. And you know, I think, you know, in this last 30 seconds, very quickly, call to action from each of you for this audience. Charles.
Think before you eat and take anything.
Thank you. Geeta.
Eat more plants.
Robert.
Eat less meat.
A-dae.
Think about your grandparents and what they ate.
Beautiful way to end. Thank you all so much. This was great. Please give them a huge round of applause. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Tanya.
Thank you. While they're getting off the stage, thank you again so much. I want to quickly thank you, Geeta, a few more of our in-kind partners who have made today's reception so special: Impossible, the American Frozen Food Institute, and Simply. I also want to give a shameless plug. Hey, people, sit down. Don't go anywhere. I also want to give a shameless plug. If you like summits like these, we can only do this because of our grassroots members. We encourage you to look at foodtank.com/join if you feel so inclined, and you join at the cultivator, planter, or grower level. That's the word. You can get a food tank cutting board today. So thank you all. Now I'm very excited to turn to our next panel. Please join me in welcoming Grace Young, who's a James Beard Award-winning cookbook author, food historian, Chinatown advocate, and a recipient of the Julia Child Award, and one of my favorite people. Nice to see you. Moderating this conversation is a good friend of Food Tank, Stacey Vanek Smith, the senior story editor and co-host of the podcast Everybody's Business at Bloomberg. Give her a round of applause. Thank you. Nice to see you. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Grace. Thank you for talking with me. I want to jump right in to your philosophy around eating and cooking. And from what I know, it very much stems to the way you grew up eating. Can you talk a little bit about what family meals were like and how that shaped your cooking and your eating?
Of course. Thank you so much. So I grew up in a very traditional Cantonese American household. I grew up in San Francisco. Much of our lives was very American, but when it came to the food, my parents basically raised us with exactly the same diet that they had in China. And they were constantly telling us at every meal why what we were eating was good for us. And so the concept of food as medicine was taught to me from the time I was a child. When we would have really rich meals, we'd be eating in restaurants, or we had dim sum. Then the next day, my mother would make very plain Chinese rice porridge, and she would say, "This is very good for cleansing your system." The porridge is just cooked long grain rice and water until it's a very thin gruel. When I was a teenager, she had me often drink American ginseng. When you're a teenager, you're very, you love junk food or French fries, burgers, that kind of thing. And lots of times as a teenager, you would have acne. And the ginseng, American ginseng, cleans your system and balances you. Every night at dinner, the dishes were always like a balance between a stir-fry dish and a steamed dish and rice. And there would always be a soup. And the soup was drunk for its ability to balance your body. Very clean, very simple soups. So this time of the year, my mother and my aunties always make a mustard green and sweet potato soup. Very simple. No meat in it at all, but the feeling is that at the change of the seasons, going from summer to autumn, it's a time that your body is very vulnerable to getting sick. And so this balances your body, fortifies it. That combination of vegetables cleanses your body, and my aunties and my grandmother and my mother would all say it prevents you from having the flu.
Oh. Well,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would trust them.
Yeah. And also, like Chinese herbs. women always would drink after their menstrual cycle dong quai, which is in English is called angelica. And so they would make a soup of angelica and Chinese red dates, and that fortifies your reproductive system. It would also be drunk after you've had a baby. My mother often put goji berries, which are nowadays in American society considered a superfood, and they're put in trail mixes. We never had it raw. It was always put into soups or stews, and we were told that was very, very good for your eyes.
When you were growing up, when you were a teenager, how did you feel about eating in this way? Was it later that you developed an appreciation for it, or did you always have that?
I hated it. I was just like, why do we have to drink these soups? You know, like every meal was a soup, and this soup did this, and this soup did that. But, you know, now my parents have passed away. And my first book is called Wisdom in the Chinese Kitchen. And it talks about the wisdom behind all of the dishes that we ate and why we ate them. And I actually now refer to the book sometimes, because sometimes my memory isn't so great, right? But I thought a few years ago that as my parents aged, they were always drinking once a week Korean ginseng. They would make a soup of Korean ginseng, and the thought is that as you age, you're not as strong as you used to be, and you need a little bit more energy, and you need to like sort of strengthen your heart. And so recently I started drinking Korean ginseng, and I actually feel very good.
Really?
Yeah,
You
I
noticed
mean,
it?
I seriously, there is so much wisdom behind Chinese cuisine. Yeah, and that's why the book is called The Wisdom of the Chinese Kitchen.
One of the things you talk about a lot is seasonal eating.
Yes.
Will you talk a little bit about that and its importance, I guess, both for an individual and the world around us?
Right. Actually, I can feel that my throat is getting a little dry. Can anyone get me a water?
Water.
Just in anticipation. So seasonal and local eating is, for the Chinese, what you eat and the season that you eat it is one of the fundamental tenets of Chinese cuisine. My parents always ate what was in season and anticipated, thank you so much, Danny, would anticipate with excitement that, you know, right now in the Chinese markets, lotus root is really coming into season. And that is drunk in the autumn and in the winter to increase your blood and improve your circulation. That's not something that you would eat in the summertime. In the spring, my mother's face would light up because asparagus was in season. But if you gave her asparagus, you know, around November or December, she would look at you like you're crazy and insane because it doesn't taste as good, right? It's woody. It doesn't have great asparagus flavor. It's not the time to be eating asparagus. And so my parents were also very frugal, and whatever was in season was the cheapest vegetable to buy, right? So, and when you think about it in terms of climate change, you know, it's so important to eat what's local. It means that there's been less intense refrigeration, less travel time. When I walk into Trader Joe's and I see all those vegetables already wrapped up in cellophane, I always think, my mother would just think, how insane, why would anybody buy vegetables that you don't get to choose yourself? You know, in Chinatown, she would go and, you know, handpick each green bean. And I would stand there just like really impatiently, like, why can't you just grab a whole bunch? But the art of buying your vegetables is to go to the farmer's market. And I'm the same way. My husband's like rolling his eyes, but I'm just, you know, I go to each stand, oh, this one has the really good plums. And I don't just grab a bunch of them. I'm looking at each one and I put it in the bag and I think, I am channeling my mother.
A lot of hearing you talk about food, it seems like the ideas of food and storytelling are very woven together. Will you talk a little bit about that? I mean, storytelling is my world, and so I'm very interested in it, but it does seem like it ties quite into your world as well.
Well, I think food becomes much more exciting when you tell the story behind it. I'm called the stir-fry guru and the wok queen.
And the wok therapist.
And the wok therapist,
Yeah.
yes. So I love stir-frying. And I often talk about how wonderful it is, how delicious it is, what a great cooking technique it is. But when I went to China and I saw people stir-frying on traditional hearth stoves. So in China, they have stoves that have been made of clay. There's a hole, and that's where the wok sits in. And then they either put dried rice stalks or dried grass stalks into the stove, and then they heat up the wok and then do their stir fry. When I was in the countryside and I saw a farmer do this, it completely blew my mind because they put in the dried rice stalk, it stir-fried, the vegetables stir-fried in 2 or 3 minutes. And then I looked into the stove, and there wasn't even a 1/4 of an inch of the rice stalk. So when people are really accustomed to stir-frying, they know exactly how much fuel to use. And it made me realize that in the West, when we cook, we're not thinking about conserving our cooking fuel, right? We braise a stew for 2 or 3 hours. We put something in the oven that roasts for 3, 4 hours. And we're not thinking about conserving fuel at all. But there, I just thought, wow, and stir frying it only takes 2 or 3 minutes. The most amazing story to me, which I think really teaches you something about the Chinese reverence and respect for our resources, is my mentor was Florence Lynn. And when she was in her 90s, she told me this story that when she was a teenager in China, she lived in the countryside with her aunties and her mother, and she said that they only stir-fried every fortnight because stir-frying, which only takes 2 or 3 minutes, was such an extravagant use of cooking fuel. Instead, every night for their dinner, they would cook rice in a giant wok, and after they had boiled off the majority of water, they would put a rack over the rice, and then they would put a dish with a raw fish and scallions and ginger. They might put some tofu, a dish with some beaten eggs to make a custard, a dish that had pickled vegetables, a dish that had fresh vegetables like bok choy or green beans. And then they would put the lid on the wok and finish cooking the rice. And by the time the rice was cooked, all these other dishes were cooked, so that you didn't have to use cooking fuel for every single dish that you were cooking. And I think that when you do storytelling and you explain to people the reasoning behind the way things are done, you have a respect. It really teaches us something. And I think right now, as I was preparing for this program with you today, I was thinking about food as medicine, but I was also thinking we need to speak about the fact that the Chinese principles behind our cuisine really teach us about living sustainably. And as we face climate change, this becomes more and more important.
Well, I want to ask you about the wok. You are known as the wok therapist. Yeah. You wrote a cookbook, The Breath of a Wok. I've watched many of your videos, and I have to say, they almost seem like a love letter to the wok. You speak about it almost like a person, like a living thing. And I I'm very embarrassed to say I've never cooked with a wok. And I have pans that I like them, but I don't think about them when I'm not using them. But this seems so fundamental to your work, and I'd love for you to talk about the wok. People call you with questions about their wok. They're stressed about their wok. They think they seasoned it wrong.
Yes.
They want to find someone to season it.
Yeah. You should watch my, I have a video on YouTube called The Wok Therapist. And that talks about the fact that no one calls me because I don't give out my number. But people certainly text me and they send me messages on Instagram and Facebook and in the old days on Twitter. Yeah, I have this love affair with the wok from the time I was a child. And that is because my father was a liquor salesman in San Francisco's Chinatown, and so he knew all the chefs, because all the chefs were the owners. And so whenever we went into a restaurant, we never ordered from the menu. He would just stroll into the kitchen, talk to the chef, and then he would come out and he would say, I asked the chef to make, my father's favorite dish was stir-fried clams with black bean sauce. And he would say, I told the chef to give us extra wok hay. So wok, all of you, your Cantonese is very good. You know what wok means. And hay is the Cantonese word for energy and life force. In Mandarin, it's qi, right? And so if a stir fry is made properly, it contains wok hay, which I translate as the breath of a wok. And so when the dish would come out, we would sit closest to the kitchen door, and literally you could see the heat coming off this dish. And I always say it's like a barbecue. Like when you take food right off the barbecue, it has a special essence when it comes off. And 5 minutes later, it still tastes good, but it's lost that essence. And so, yeah, I grew up with this love and appreciation for wok cooking.
What is it about the wok that does give life to food? I'm so curious. I have to ask because it seems like such a big part of your cooking and your...
Yes, so when you cook with a traditional wok, it's either carbon steel or cast iron, and the more you cook with it, any of you who grew up with cast iron pans, it acquires a patina, so it becomes naturally nonstick. And I think this is, right now, this country, this world doesn't need nonstick cookware. This is, to me, what I call ancient nonstick cookware. And the food tastes better. It really has a sear and an intense flavor. And when you talk about food as medicine, when you're cooking from carbon steel or cast iron, the heat actually transfers iron into your food. So it's a brilliant way of cooking. I see Dr. Nessa was in the audience, and when I wrote my last book, I interviewed her talking about stir frying and what are the health benefits, and she confirmed that the high heat and quick cooking actually preserves some of the most delicate vitamins like C and folic acid. So the genius behind this way of cooking cannot be denied. And you need to get a wok, and I'll go to Chinatown with you. Yes, I'm offering my services.
I will take you up on that. I will 100% take you up on that. I'm very excited. Before we go, I wanted to see if people want to start to change the way they eat and maybe start to consider some of the things that you've been talking about, food as medicine, more seasonal eating. What are some good places they can start? What would you recommend to somebody who is maybe wanting to make these changes but doesn't quite know where to begin?
Well, I think one of the most brilliant aspects of Chinese cooking is the emphasis on vegetables, legumes, and grains. And we certainly eat meat and fish, but it's always eaten really as a condiment. It's not like in the West where each person gets a whole chicken breast, right? When you do a chicken, right? Or a whole steak. When you're eating in a traditional Chinese home, there's a mixture of dishes, and if there is meat protein, it's like thin slices, maybe even shreds of pork or chicken or beef. I think that's so important, and especially as we address the effects of climate change, a reduction of eating meat is so important for reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
So more vegetables, maybe a bigger
Yeah.
variety of vegetables.
And even eliminating meat, I think, would be a fantastic way to start.
Oh, wow. Anything else you might recommend to people who, are here and care about food and care about the world,
Well, I'm also
other than buying a wok?
I'm also known as a Chinatown, the accidental voice of Chinatown. And so I would urge everyone here in New York City that they should go to Chinatown and support mom and pop businesses and those eateries and those, thank you, those markets. I think we're all trying to stretch our dollars right now. Food is so expensive, and one of the great hidden secrets is to shop in Chinatown, where the quality is so high and the prices are so low because Chinese customers are very, very frugal. And so you can find everything in Chinatown, and the fruits and vegetables are generally local. They're coming from nearby farms. And this is a great way to eat local and to support struggling mom and pop businesses, because our Chinatown right now is at risk of disappearing. And certainly the policies right now of our government and not supporting immigrant businesses means it's more important than ever for everyone to show up.
Thank you so much, Grace and Stacey. I'm going to go get a walk with you, too.
Yes, please.
Give her another round of applause, please. Thank you. Thank you so much. Joining us for this next conversation, Stacey, you stay right where you are. Do not move. For this next conversation, we have Kathleen Finlay, the president of the Glynwood Center for Regional Food and Farming, a woman I love dearly. Tutu Bardero, sorry I messed up your name, the assistant director of food access initiatives at Partnerships for GrowNYC. I love you too. Nancy Easton, the co-founder and executive director of Wellness in the Schools. Nancy knows I love her. And Shanon Morris, the vice president of programming for Harlem Grown. And Shanon, we go back a long way. Over to you, Stacey.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much, everyone. So we're talking today about nutrition across adolescence. And you all, in some way or another, are working with young people, with farms, with schools. So I wanted to start out just to get, I guess, a little bit of the lay of the land. I just wonder what issues you're seeing right now across youth and farms and schools, and what you think needs to be addressed most urgently. Shanon, you work just up the street at Harlem Grown. Let's start with you. What issues are you seeing that are in your mind?
Sure. So I think some of the main issues are always going to be with schools, right? That's where you're going to find the kids. And generally, those are the staff, those are the people and the systems that are having some of the biggest issues right now when it comes to staffing, when it comes to funding, and when it comes to time and priorities, right? Schools are constantly being pulled in many different ways for priorities. And so when it comes to organizations like Harlem Grown or other organizations that want to push in and provide food and farm education, sometimes you're pulling in many different directions, and they're excited, they want to get into it, but you don't always get the buy-in that you're looking for, right? Not necessarily from the school, not because they don't want to, because there's many other priorities. From the kids' side, though, there's always excitement, but when it comes to farms, you're always going to have our gardens, difficult time finding space to grow food, but we're in New York City, so we're all nimble, right? We can find a way to grow something on a windowsill, and of course, it's funding. I mean, that's all of our problems.
Always. Nancy, you also work with a lot of schools. Can you talk about what you're seeing?
Yeah, I know this is a food panel, but kids are really depressed. Kids are anxious. Kids are stressed out. I mean, we all read about it and know about it, but we see that, and we see it in the classroom in terms of behavior. But in terms of this particular topic, we heard earlier, is it 1 in 5 children coming to kindergarten in New York City already at risk of chronic illness, overweight or obese? So we are working with a very unhealthy population. And I taught many years ago, and I saw it already happening then. Children couldn't walk a flight of stairs without having to stop to catch their breath. They couldn't focus in class. They were relying on ultra-processed foods for breakfast, lunch, and probably dinner. So we're unhealthy physically, and we are, unfortunately, if you call it unhealthy, but we're stressed out mentally in terms of what we're seeing. I'm sorry to be so depressing, but we were just saying that earlier. I'm like, God, it was so hopeful this morning, but.
Well, a lot can happen in a day. Tutu, you're with GrowNYC. You work, I feel like a lot of what you do is kind of creating connections between farmers and the eaters of food.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about why that is an important connection to have?
Great. So we've been doing this since 1970 and started out as writing a lot of policies. We started as a mayoral directive and started to realize that we were writing a lot of papers that no one was actually implementing. Very quickly changed to becoming a nonprofit, and one of our biggest programs is our food access program, where we have farmers markets, we have farm stands, where people in New York City can access food. And some of the problems that we were seeing in 1970s that we still see today is that New Yorkers who live on an island have limited access to fresh fruits and vegetables. And so what we do at GrowNYC is provide opportunities for people to connect with farmers, to be able to understand the people who are growing their food, some of the challenges they're facing. We're also connecting people who live in two different communities, people who are in upstate New York with people who live in the city, so they can have, a broad-based idea of what our state looks like and what are the challenges that people are facing. But also for, many of us who live in the city, as Shanon saying, we don't have a lot of space. And I remember, teaching one of our curriculums in a school in the Bronx and showing kids beets. And I was like, what are these? And they're like, carrots. And they didn't know what it was because they've never seen it grown. And so a lot of the work that we do is creating opportunities for people to connect either with the food that is growing in the ground, so in school gardens, in community gardens, or with the people who are growing food. So people can expand their idea of what food is, what it looks like, and that becomes a natural part of their life, their environment. And so that's something that we're constantly trying to create even more opportunities, which is why we have programs in almost every borough, even Staten Island. We have lots of programs in Staten Island. We won't forget them. But that's just such a pivotal part of the work that we do.
And Kathleen, I'm going to put the same question to you about the connection between farmers and where and how the food is grown and people who are eating the food, and young people especially.
Yeah, so our work at the Glynwood Center for Regional Food and Farming, we're really focused on building a resilient and just and healthy food system here in New York, and working with other regions that are also re-regionalizing their food system. And so I see the benefits of connecting eaters and farmers on a regular basis, but I think that connection is vital for folks to understand where their food comes from. Even in the food as medicine movement, I feel like the production of food is often left off the conversation table. And our work is really to support our farmers who I consider our frontline healthcare providers. They're doing the work that gets the food that we need every day, and they really need support right now, especially with the recent freezing and canceling of USDA funds. We had 44 farms that were being funded through various programs, mostly to address the climate crisis. Many Black farmers who had received funding from the federal government for the first time, those funds were canceled. But in a wonderful act of solidarity in our food community, funders got together and we were able to replace all the funds that were canceled and made significant contributions. Yeah, it was great. To folks who had their funding frozen. It's not a long-term solution. It's an emergency response, and I just can't stress enough that our farmers need us. The kinds of farmers that we want to support: regenerative farmers, farmers that represent cultures that have a lot to contribute to our palates, and they need us.
I'm wondering, as you alluded to, this is a time of a lot of change in our country in many, many ways. And I think, a lot of people are in the city right now talking about problems, but also talking about solutions and things that can be done. I'd love to hear from all of you about some of the things that you are doing that you're excited about or you want start doing, or just maybe how we can start to address some of the changes that are happening that can truly feel overwhelming sometimes. Shanon, maybe we could start with you.
Sure.
No pressure. How do we solve this right now?
Well, this is how we solve it. 1, 2, 3. So I think some of the things that we're excited about at Harlem Grown, it's, reminds me of the conversation that was happening a few moments ago where we were talking about having this conversation with our kids. We have an after-school program, we have a summer camp program, we're in schools all the time, we're having welcoming families in our farms, and it seems silly to not be talking about what's happening right now in our country. Clearly, there are different levels of how you would approach it for different age groups, but there's so much to learn here. We talk about history a lot. We talk about the Black Panther movement, all those things, but there's a case study literally happening right now. And I think our kids would really benefit from learning from it, forming their own opinions about it, and being a part of the change. They are going to be the panel one day, right? And so we really want to see them be as educated as possible. We're also really excited to continue to create more open spaces for our kids to be in green spaces that don't always have to be so prescriptive. Just be outside, put your feet in the dirt and in the grass, and understand what the land gives to you. We were talking about food as medicine and how it's so individualized, but it's also so much feeding for the soul. Talking about food, breaking bread with people, being in the environment, being in a garden and a farm. And so really just making sure that our spaces are accessible, open, and there's space to just be you and do a little bit of what our grandparents did.
You mentioned that the kids were often very excited about. Will you talk a little bit about that? Because that was really nice to hear.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever seen a kid in the dirt? They love worms. And that's what's beautiful about it, right? Like, if kids can see it grow, they see it chopped. If they can chop it themselves, they're going to eat it. They're going to talk about it. Our kids are so cute. We had an amazing summer camp where our theme was if what you water will grow, and kids learned all about, taking care of plants and being excited about hydroponics and soil farming, doing cooking classes in the garden where they were making, different salads. I think we made maybe a banana pudding cup they got a chance to make themselves. We're trying to make recipes that are going to be excited for them, but also showing them modifications and just getting their hands busy. It's hands-on learning. That's the way that folks are going to learn. That's what's going to make them most excited. You can't learn this stuff in textbooks. And it's through experience.
And Nancy, I will put the same question to you. I know the optimism of the morning has worn off, but maybe we can spark some for the evening.
Eternal optimist, I will say. No. So where I see hope, it's interesting. This morning there was talk about school food programs being cut. Today they are not. So I do see hope there. Wellness in the Schools works very closely with the Federal School Lunch Program. We work with our districts around the country to write recipes that are scratch-cooked, plant-forward, and culturally inclusive. And then we hire chefs who go into schools to help to train the cooks, the school cooks, on the preparation of those meals. And we do that not because we're shoving this down food service directors' throats, but because they're coming to us because they want this for their children. We know what what is said about school lunch and what's in the news about school lunch, but I see that change. We're working on a program with New York City. They feed 1 million. We together feed 1 million children every single day. You heard this earlier, but 75% of them, their families are food insecure. They live what we call below the poverty level, as we all know those thresholds. So that meal at school is possibly their only meal. And frankly, it can be 2 and 3 meals a day. So we work very passionately and very directly with our districts to ensure that that meal is a nourishing meal. And we created over 100 recipes with chefs around the country for New York City. 40 of those recipes are on the school lunch menu. Everything from jollof cauliflower to kachumber salad to a kashari stew, recipes that the children recognize from the many cultures in the city. So I'm very, very hopeful about that, and we're continuing that program. And 32 million children rely on the federal school lunch program. About 22 million of those children, again, live below the poverty level. So again, it's such an important meal. And with cuts to SNAP, and cuts to WIC, and cuts to TFAP, and cuts to farm-to-school programs. Right now, today, I'm hopeful about school meals, and I'm committed to working, tirelessly to continue to change those meals. So there's some hope.
Good. Well, you know, it's always a balance these days. Tutu, I wanted to put the same question to you, and I know that GrowNYC does a really interesting program with it's like green bucks or green dollars.
Green market bucks.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I'd love it if you talk about that or any other programs that that you're
Sure.
putting in place. I thought it was so interesting.
I'll talk about what I'm excited about and then really wrap in the green market bucks. I've been at GrowNYC for almost 8 years, and I started in youth education because I wanted to work with children. And I think what is exciting is that we have a lot of adult programs that mimic our young people programs. Good example is our green spaces. This is where we work to build or refurbish gardens around New York City. We have a gardening education program where kids are in sustainable outdoor spaces, learning about plants, how they grow, what they look like, connecting with butterflies and worms, as Shanon is saying. And we also have various nutrition education curriculums that allow kids to have the same experience that they would at a farmer's market or at a farm stand, where they're learning about our local and regional food system, the farmers who are part of that system, cooking the food that is either purchased from the farm stand or the farmer's market, or food that they're growing themselves in their schools. And so essentially what we're doing is we're creating opportunities for children to experience the same things their parents are at our different programs, and providing a pathway for kids who might never have known about what we do and the work that we do to have green careers. We have lots of, one of our really great programs is our youth workforce development program. It's a 6-week program in the summer that is pretty similar to the summer youth employment, where we have anywhere between 10 to 15 young people who come, and they get the experience of working all the different programs at GrowNYC. They get to do what we do. They stock the food, they talk to customers, they make cooking demos. They'll probably do composting, they'll go to a garden, they'll build what are those called, Shanon? The plant boxes?
Planters?
The planters, thank you. They'll build planters. And essentially we are creating this idea that you can be more than the things that you've just seen, especially because we're in a city. We're giving them the experience of you can also do these jobs. And maybe some of them won't end up doing those jobs, but they'll be a farm stand shopper, they'll be a farmer's market shopper, they'll make different decisions about the food that they eat, they'll make different decisions about the food that their family is also choosing to eat. And speaking of our Green Market Buck program, so one thing that is pivotal to our food access program is not just supporting the farmers who grow our food, but we also want to make sure every New Yorker can afford the food that we're selling. As everybody knows, prices of food are going up. That is a challenge not just to the eaters, but also the farmers. So because we know that is a challenge, we didn't want to restrict farmers markets to just people who could pay with cash or credit. And so we accept various nutrition incentives like SNAP. And if you use your SNAP, there's an additional incentive if you use it at farmers market. You spend $2, you get an additional $2 up to $10 a day. So spend your SNAP at a farmers market. We also have, we accept farmers market nutrition checks, which is specifically created to support New York State farmers. And so people who are participants, families who are participants in WIC, as well as older adults can get these. It's about $25 every summer. We also have farmers who accept EWIC, and we have our Fresh Connect program, which is a SNAP incentive for New York State, and we also have a Green Market Box program, which is an internal currency, but is also a currency that we use in partnership with a health insurance company, where we allow their OTC participants to be able to use their OTC dollars in the market. And to give you an idea of what that's like, when we started that program, we were doing about 50,000 in sales. Last year, we did about 560,000 in sales. And so it's a really great program because people are getting their OTC at a doctor's, and they're talking about food that, that if they're talking about medical nutrition therapy, and then they get their OTC bucks that they could go to the market and use. They can use that for any SNAP eligible food in our market.
Excellent. And Kathleen, I want to put the same question to you.
Yeah. Just such great work, though. Really inspiring. So thank you for everyone here. I think I'm excited about the relationship between the hunger relief system and regional farms, and that I think there's some inroads that are starting to have real results. So, for example, we started something called the Food Sovereignty Fund that pays farmers typically ahead of the season for a set amount of food, and then we partner that farm with a hunger relief organization, so a soup kitchen or a food pantry. And then we help make sure that the food is distributed throughout the season to that access point. So there's two reasons why I'm excited about this program. One is, of course, it gets healthy, regional, dignified, culturally appropriate food to the families that need it the most. But it does so by supporting the kinds of farms that we want to support, so that the farms see it as basically a wholesale, upfront contract. And those are the kinds of contracts that really help a farm plan and persist and thrive. So that program will do about $500,000 worth of contracts. That's happening, just ending this season, and we'll do that again. And it inspired New York State to do New York Food for New York Families, which was a state incentive kind of modeled on the same thing, paying farmers to get food into the hunger relief systems. And so I see, even though that funding some of it has been rescinded, but I see now the relationships are happening between the food pantries and the farms directly. Like, they don't need us as a liaison anymore. Once they see the great food and these stories of, they're sort of heartbreaking stories, but one pantry that gets their vegetable delivery from a Latinx farm, feeding mostly Latinx residents here in New York City, the folks who use the pantry start to know when the vegetables will be delivered, and even, they'll just wait in line until the farmer comes so that they can get access to that great, beautiful food.
Yeah.
So I feel hopeful about some of those connections.
If I can jump in along those lines, there are districts in this country who are procuring food they're having farmers grow in December for the next school year, and that's just the ideal situation for schools.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I can't believe how fast our time went. I just saw the zero on the clock. I know, but thank you
it was
all.
as fast for you guys as it was for us.
I know. I'm a little shocked, but thank you all so much for the important work that you do, and for sharing your thoughts with all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You can go to the second seat. That second seat. Weren't they great? Give them another round of applause, please. And I just want to reiterate something that was said on this panel and Grace said before. We need to support our Chinatown businesses. We need to support our Harlem businesses. We need to support our Washington Heights businesses. These are communities that are under attack right now, and they need your support more than ever before. And as Tutu and Kathleen said, support your farmers. Support GrowNYC. They need it now more than ever. So I have a very special conversation now with U.S. Member of Congress Daniel Goldman, who represents the 10th District of New York, which includes where we're coming from today. So this is great to have you here. And we're going to talk about policy solutions to improve eaters' health and well-being. So thank you, Congressman. It's great to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, Danielle.
It's exciting. I want to dive right into some really icky, sticky issues. And as food prices rise, we're seeing cuts to the SNAP program, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Can you talk about what that means for New Yorkers, those cuts?
Sure, yes, it's going to be devastating for a lot, and you hit the nail on the head, because it's not just that SNAP is going to be reduced significantly, if not eliminated, for more than 300,000 people in New York City, but the tariffs are causing food prices especially to go up. So we have a combination of a problem that is a tinderbox. Yeah. And what it's going to do is to dramatically reduce the options for so many New Yorkers to simply eat. I mean, the most basic necessity, right? And it is baffling to me, in the wealthiest country in the world, that we would force people to choose whether they are going to eat or get health care, whether they are going to have dinner or pay their rent. And that's really what this is going to do. And to the point of what we're talking about here, it dovetails as well with the rise in healthcare costs and the cuts in healthcare.
Yeah.
You know, money is fungible, right? You don't just, it's not, I have this line item in my budget for healthcare and I have this line item for food. No, you have whatever you can make for the month, and that's what you have to spend. And, you know, you mentioned Chinatown, which is also in my district. The impact of all of this, and the tariffs included, on our small businesses is together really exacerbating significant problems.
Absolutely, and it becomes so much harder for families to lead healthy lives when these benefits are taken away, when these tariffs are in place. What are you hearing from your constituents?
Well, I'm hearing multiple things that are really going to damage our economy in addition to just damaging the livelihoods of people. I was over in a restaurant, a small business, a restaurant in Park Slope a few weeks ago. Is a jerk chicken restaurant, and I was talking to Fanny, the owner, and she said that just because of the tariffs, the cost of ingredients have gone up so much so that her profits have gone from 30% to zero.
Oh my God.
Because she can't pass through all of these costs because she just won't get any business.
Right.
And that's something I hear in Chinatown all the time.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when you add that to a massive backlog of SNAP theft.
Right.
And
theft.
over $40 million has been stolen from SNAP recipients.
Yep.
And we had a bipartisan deal that I was very involved in trying to put together last December, because the federal government has to essentially authorize the restitution to those victims.
Yeah.
We had it in the bipartisan bill, and then when Elon Musk and Donald Trump decided to swoop in and undermine it, they took that out. And so it's honestly, it's unfathomable to me that you would have the victims of SNAP theft bear the brunt of it when they literally depend on that money to eat.
Right.
So that's something we're working on, and we're pushing. I'm pushing for the Food is Medicine Act,
Yep.
Which is so topical to what we're talking about here, and making sure that we are not only feeding people, but that we are creating an environment that allows for healthy, nutritious food to blossom, to grow, so that now there are more options for those who are on SNAP to eat that important food, because food is truly medicine.
Are you seeing any bipartisan support on these issues right now?
Yes, that's a complicated question. So there are co-sponsors from the Republican side of bills. I'm have a bipartisan bill on increasing the security of EBT cards so that the theft cannot happen anymore. The chips and technology is way ahead of where our EBT cards are. And that's bipartisan. But the problem is that those Republicans who sponsor these bills do not prioritize them. And the leadership, which controls what bills go on the floor, do not put them on the floor.
Yeah.
So yes, it's supported in a bipartisan way in name, but when you are in the majority, you have total control over what legislation goes on the floor.
Right.
I have no control of it, and I can't do anything about it without Republican help, and we haven't gotten any.
Absolutely. I want to go back to SNAP and summer EBT. Can you talk about, if we don't have summer EBT here in New York City, what that looks like?
Well, think about it, right? I mean, free meals at schools are so essential for so many kids and so many families. That is, unfortunately, often, now it's been expanded to breakfast, but breakfast and lunch are sometimes the only meals that our students eat. In the summer, they're not going to school, so they don't have those meals available to them. So I've been working with the governor, I've been working with my colleagues in Washington to really expand the summer EBT program to make sure that people can get reimbursed for food through this summer EBT program, but also so that people know about it. Because your free school lunches and school meals are well known to everybody. You go to school, you get them, but there's a process to get reimbursed for summer EBT. And so we're, last summer, we did a lot of work with the state to amplify this, to make sure that people know about it so they can get reimbursed for their food costs.
So really important for your constituents to call Congress and say that they want summer EBT to exist.
Absolutely.
You mentioned working with the governor, and in the absence of federal leadership on so many of the issues that people like you care about, what are you recommending sort of at the state level?
Well, one of the things that we're starting to have a lot of conversations about is obviously how to mitigate the cuts that are likely coming. And that's with SNAP, that's with Medicaid, that's with healthcare. One of the ways that the Republicans are trying to cut all of these programs is to make the administrative burden so significant that people just can't do it. They don't have the time in the day, they don't have the records that they may need. But the state is ultimately responsible for establishing within the confines of the law what forms need to be filled out, how that process is going to work. And so we are working with the state to try to make this process as easy and simple as possible so that people are able to continue to supply the administrative records and documentation about work requirements so that they can stay on Medicaid and SNAP.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the one thing though that's I don't know if what you all feel like. I have 5 kids, and I have a 7-year-old, and I have an 8-year-old. The notion that a 7-year-old, that an 8-year-old is not a dependent child is the most absurd thing that I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But that's what they did, and that is going to impact hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers, because if you're not a dependent child, then you have to meet the 80 hours of work per month. And oftentimes you can't because you're taking care of multiple children that need you, that literally cannot get around, cannot eat.
Right.
You know, so it's really, really disingenuous and incredibly sneaky for the Republicans, and that's putting it politely.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's one word for it.
To say that 8-year-olds are not dependent children.
Yeah, absolutely. These are tough times. The intentional chaos that's been created by the administration in so many ways is unconscionable. But we still want to create, citizen eaters, people who really care about these issues. What are you recommending to your constituents? And I'll give you an example. Senator Coons and Congresswoman Pingree have told me in the past that it's stories that matter to them the
100%.
most. To be able to tell those, give stories to Congress members so that they can articulate them on the floor.
Right. And just think about it, and it's true across the board. I can talk about the $900 billion in cuts to Medicaid. But for everybody, that is just an intangible. It's impossible to kind of imagine what that actually means. But if I am talking about how many constituents in my district, and there are over 50,000 who get SNAP benefits, and they're all subject to having reduced benefits, which means that they are not going to be able to eat, that is better. When I'm able to talk about Fanny's story, people understand that a lot better. So in terms of advocacy, that is incredibly important. And then the other thing that I am really focused on now is that we have to recognize as a country, as a community, as a city, as a state, we need to pull together during this difficult time. And it will end. I promise you, it will end, but it is going to be bad for a little while.
Sure.
And so we need to recognize that all of us need to pitch in a little bit more, whether it's time, whether it's energy, whether it's money. And I am specifically calling on corporate America to fill some of this gap, especially as it relates to basic necessities like food and healthcare.
Any other actors you want to call out who should step up in this space?
Well, look, foundations and charitable organizations are going to need to fill some of this gap. And as government funding is cut, the demand for that money is even greater.
Yeah.
But for those who can afford it, boosting their charitable giving during this difficult time on these basic essentials is incredibly important and incredibly helpful. And so some people have the money to do it. Some people have the ideas. Some people have the advocacy. Some people have the organizational skills. Some people have the incredible nonprofits and community organizations that do the work on the ground. We need to make sure they are funded,
Right.
they get more funding, and so that they can do their work for more people, because there are going to be a lot more people who need it.
What I find really positive about you is you're talking still about hope. You see a day after all of this is over.
There will be a day after. There will be a day after. And frankly, from the Democrats' perspective, all of these, the staffing at the government level, the benefits are being so significantly undercut. But it actually presents us with a unique opportunity to reimagine how we want to provide healthcare,
Right.
how we want to provide food assistance. And that really dovetails with new technologies in agriculture, and making those connections, as you were talking about, with farmers and into our urban areas. But even urban farming has
Right.
become a bigger thing, and something that I'm pushing very hard, given my district is in the heart of New York City,
Right,
and we
right.
don't have a lot of fields with agriculture. But we need to take this opportunity to not just return to what the status quo was, but to think creatively, make it better, make it more efficient, and make it more productive.
Wonderful point to end on, Congressman. Thank you so much for being here. It means
Thank
a
you
lot
so
to
much.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care. I am excited because we have a book giveaway. We are excited to share a few copies of Harlem Grown, How One Big Idea Transformed a Neighborhood. It's an really inspiring story about how food and farming can bring communities together. So if you look under your chairs, you'll find, some of you will find, a fruit or vegetable sticker. So look, and if you have one, hold it up, and a food tank team member. Yeah. And they're signed by Tony Hillary. Sorry, she distracted me. So, all right. Hold up your hands. There we go, one over there. All right, while we're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and continue the conversations. Everyone settle down just a little bit. So, you're trouble. We're going to turn to our next session on food as medicine and eating for health. Joining us for this panel, we have Tanya Fields, the executive director of the Black Feminist Project. Give her a round of applause. Woo, woo, nice to see you. We have Dr. Christine Going, who is the senior advisor of the Food Security Program Office at the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. Give her a round of applause. Jilly Stevens, the amazing Jilly Stevens, is the CEO of City Harvest. Leslie Gordon is the president and CEO of Food Bank for New York City. Give her a round of applause. And moderating this session, we have my friend Dana Cohen, an award-winning journalist and the founder of Progressive Hedonist. Give her a round of applause. Over to you.
Thanks, Danielle. Danny, getting really fancy here. So have you guys been sitting for a long time? I just have to ask. Can you just get up for a second? It's food is medicine. We got to be healthy. Just shake it off, because I do want you to be like awake and ready for this amazing, incredible panel? All right. Thank you for shaking it. I can sit down. So we've heard a lot about food as medicine, and what excites me so much about this extraordinary panel is that we have another set of perspectives, right? This is a panel that adds to so many of the things that have gone before it. And so just to get us started, I'd like to ask each of you about the work that you're doing with your organizations within food as medicine, and then bring it to life through a story of one fine person. So Christine, I'm going to start with you because you have the broadest mandate with 9 million people and the largest integrated healthcare system in the United States.
Yeah,
It's
thank you.
extraordinary.
So, thank you, Danny. I was going to open with that. A lot of folks don't realize that the VA is the largest integrated healthcare system in the United States, and we care for over 9 million veterans. And we're really excited. We have been doing this work for 10 years. We've been screening veterans for food insecurity formally since 2017, which means every time a veteran comes to an outpatient clinic, once a year they get screened for food insecurity. If they're admitted to any type of bed, inpatient medicine, surgery, psychiatric, rehab, they're going to get screened. And what that means is that we have a ton of data. And so we were successful in actually building an office dedicated to food security. So the VA also, not only being the largest integrated healthcare system, we're also one of the only ones that has an office dedicated to food security. And our office is interdisciplinary, which we feel is really important, because we always say it's no one discipline's job to solve for food insecurity. So our office has dietitians, nurse, social worker, and then administrative staff and folks that do comms and legislative affairs. But what's important is that it's a real continuum. So the veteran comes in and more than likely is going to be screened by a nurse. And let's say they screen positive, the nurse is going to start to do a whole host of things. They're going to start to do a med reconciliation, like, oh, now I know that Mr. Jones in front of me doesn't always eat, but I see he's diabetic and he's on insulin. This is something I need to make sure that we think about. They're going to start looking at their labs, and they're going to interpret the labs differently now, understanding that there's all this other chronic disease going on with their medications, and then lay on top of that they're not consistently eating healthy food. And so then they pass the veteran in the VA. What's really nice is the power of the VA is our integration. So because it's an integrated system, when the veteran screens positive, he or she is asked, would you like to meet with a social worker or a dietitian? And they could say yes to both. And so then the social worker wraps their arms around them and starts to case manage them and make sure they connect them to all the things that meet their needs. Because we all also know that it's rare for food insecurity to exist in isolation. So if you're food insecure, there's probably other things happening. And so the social worker is the perfect person to connect those dots, and then hand off to the dietitian, who can now say, all right, let me talk to you about where are you? Where do you cook? Where do you store your food? Do you have a refrigerator? Do you have a microwave only, or only a hot plate? What do you have? And then customizing that. And the dietitian's able to bring them the medical nutrition therapy, which only an RD can do, which means that they combine their nutrition needs with their diagnoses. So if they're hypertensive or cardiac disease, whatever it is, connecting all those dots. And so to your point about connecting the dots with one veteran. So I'm going to tell you about a veteran actually right here out on Long Island who went to the VA. He had been homeless, and he had never used the VA. And someone finally told him to go at the time he was living out of his truck. And his daughter was using the VA, who was also a veteran, and she convinced her father to go. So he goes and he gets screened for homelessness and food insecurity, because all veterans, they get screened at the same time. The reminders are attached to each other. And the veteran screens positive for both homelessness and food insecurity. The social worker, he gets assigned to a social worker immediately, gets him into the HUD-VASH program, so now that they can get him a house, and he gets his vouchers and he's living there. But they also connected him to the local food bank out on Long Island, similar to City Harvest. It's called Island Harvest. And there's a partnership, a formal relationship that the VA has with Big Feeding America, and then you see it in our individual medical centers and local food banks. Anyway, connected him, and we had a program aligned with Island Harvest where they have a mobile food pantry that brings him food on a regular basis. He was so excited with the food that he got, and in the house he was living in, there were other people who had formerly been homeless, that he was sharing his food. And then he told Island Harvest he loves to grow things, so they got him seeds and starter plants. So then he started growing his own food and started canning, and he would grow all the food so that he had it all winter long and was sharing it with his neighborhood. And I share this with you because this one veteran went from living in his truck to thriving in a community where he was sharing the food he was getting with others. And we think that's a win.
So, Tanya, I'm going to pop to you next because you're quite at the other end of the spectrum, right? You're community-based. You probably know many of the people who come to back on this project. So can you tell us about the work that you're doing and,
Yes. So I founded and run an organization called the Black Feminist Project based in the South Bronx. I am not a doctor. There's no DR, NP, PA, none of that stuff behind my name. I am the mother of 6 children that I've raised in that community. And when I first came to that community, my second child, I was very young, 23 years old. I had a child who was almost asthmatic from birth, it seemed. We were dealing with all of these different respiratory issues. And much like the doctor said, all of these things are intersectional, right? If you have one thing that exists, most likely there's an intersection of those things. So as I'm trying to figure out what is happening with my very asthmatic child who's been hospitalized twice before her first birthday, but has not received an official diagnosis of asthma, I'm starting to get to know my community, that while I'm of my community, I have some things that might be different than my community. I have social capital, I have educational capital, right? I'm in school at the time. I'm coming from a stable background in terms of my family structure, right? I'm a young marginalized mother, but I do have support in terms of extended family. And so I'm starting, and then I'm going to school for political science, right? So like now I got access to some language. I can throw some language around, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? I can tell you why this stuff is happening. And so I started to arrange and organize the mothers in my community, right? The women who look like me with the fingernails, right? And the teeth and the big earrings and all of these women who get shut out of these places, but who are in fact the experts of what's happening to them and why it's happening to them, right? And so I'm about to start saying some things to y'all that might make some of y'all uncomfortable. Good. If we're gonna talk about health in this country, you cannot talk about it in the absence of gender and race, right? And so when we come into these rooms and we sterilize, no pun intended because we're talking about medical stuff, and we sterilize these conversations and make it seem like these discrepancies and these disparities do not exist because Black women are penalized for being unmarried mothers, right? And we're not talking about this in the form of wanting to attack the autonomy, the bodily autonomy of women, and in particular Black and non-white immigrant women, if we're not having these conversations and talking about how these systems are intentional. This is not happening just because it was an accident. This is happening because somebody wants it to happen. It's happening because somebody is profiting from it. And we have to acknowledge the duality of a medical system that is in fact invested in keeping Black women and their children sick. So when I think about food, I am thinking about it as radical resistance. I am going against a system that very much benefits from the experimentation of my body. So I was like, we're gonna go out here and all of these plots that are in our community that y'all said was a deficit, we're gonna turn them into an asset. And I started liberating these plots. The police called it trespassing, but tomato, girl. So I started liberating these plots and we started growing food. And so it's really interesting that this panel happened because yesterday I'm in this, because I'm gonna fast forward, because there's a lot more to that, but I'm saving it for the book, y'all. Don't forget my name. And so we're gonna fast forward to, I've done this now for 13 years. Okay, and I'm in the garden.
Are we going to talk about chickens?
Are we going to talk chickens? We're going to talk about this chicken. These chickens, which I call the Bronx baddies. Okay, so I have 50 Bronx baddies that we use for eggs. We get about 300 eggs a week. Okay, my girls are productive. Okay, because they know ain't no free lunch. Listen. I'm like the Players Club over here. Make the eggs, don't let the eggs make you. So I hear this little voice going, excuse me, I want to see the chickens. Now, I've got the gate closed. I'm getting ready to go home. I am tired. I got to go back to my 6 kids. Now, somebody else's child is bothering me. I'm like, okay. So she was so insistent. I look up, and this little girl who looks like a muñeca, she looks like a Dora the Explorer. Seriously, she's got the two little things, and it's cut in a bob. And I'm like, how can I deny this face? I can't tell this baby to go home. So I open up the gate, and as soon as she comes in, it's on my Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, Tanya Denise Fields, you'll see it because it really happened for real. I'm not making it up.
And you're going to make it short because we won't have time for
and so
everybody.
she comes in, and I say, can I hold your hand? Her father's legally blind, so he says, I'm going to trust you to not slip off with my child. I said, okay, Dad, I got 6, I don't want yours. And so I take her to the back, I show her these chickens, we pick these eggs, and when we get ready to leave, she says to her mother, Mommy, I picked eggs. Core memory unlocked for this baby. She got to walk into this place, see this like 6-foot black warrior show her how to pick eggs right on her block next door. Now she's telling me she's gonna come back and see me anytime that gate is open. This also is part of the medicine. It's about whole communities. It is about how are we creating quality of life holistically. And I am so tired of people coming into the community like the Bronx and only talking about us through the lens of pathology. There are good people and good things that are happening in the Bronx in spite of and because of, and we need to think about them when we think about medicine as well.
And good eggs. And so for Jilly and Leslie, when I think about food rescue, I think the way back old days, right? When there's a lot of bread. And things have definitely changed so much. And Jilly, let's just start with you, with City Harvest and where food as medicine has inserted it, or have you inserted it in the mission and the actions?
Yeah, definitely. Probably started about 20 years ago when the city started releasing data that showed us that the same neighborhoods we were bringing food were the neighborhoods where we're starting to see very high rates of diet-related disease. And at City Harvest, we really started to double down on making sure we were bringing as much fresh fruits and vegetables as we could. And I'm going to make this fairly quick. As you said, Tanya Denise, fast forward to today. This year we'll rescue and deliver over 86 million pounds of food. Over 70% of it will be fresh fruits and vegetables, most of that high variety. We've moved away from the hard 7 being predominantly what we're bringing. What's really important about that is ensuring that the families and the individuals that we serve with that food have the confidence to use it and to change behaviors. And so that's where nutrition education becomes critical, no matter what form that takes, whether it's a series of courses or nudges or a cooking demonstration. But to get to your question about one example, I'm thinking about a preschool we used to bring food to. And we took a delivery of pineapple. And we heard from the woman who ran the program that these, again, little kids couldn't get over how something that hurts so much when you touch it on the outside was so delicious and sweet. And they loved it. But here's where, from my perspective, impact happens. Is when the family uses their own very scarce food dollar to make a different decision in the store. Because it's a risk for people to buy food that they're not familiar with. And so that same teacher let us know that one of the moms told them that their daughter had persuaded her to buy pineapple in the store that weekend. So that's when the real impact happens, when a scarce food dollar is being spent differently. Kept it short. That's it.
We can't avoid the clapter. And same question for you, Leslie.
Sure. What a great panel, by the way, right? I'm so energized by my colleagues up here. Thank you so much. So at Food Bank for New York City, we actually have a different vernacular for starters that we use as we reflect on this space of work. So at our house, we call it food as health, for what it's worth. And, you know, the way that we think about it is, no pun intended, food is often the carrot that brings people in. And so the question is, what can we do once folks have walked through this place of trust and familiarity and credibility to really wrap ourselves around them in the broadest way possible? And so with that in mind, the complexion of our partners on the ground throughout the great 5 boroughs of New York City include the likes of our larger hospital centers, federally qualified health clinics across the city, among some others. So making the healthy choice the easy choice at a place where you're already engaged in a conversation and have some self-awareness around broader health or diet-related diseases that you might be struggling with. Some of the things that we do include, in the past year or so, we've tested navigation. So not unlike what you heard earlier, once you've crossed that threshold, let's talk about what's going on for you. And so we've done some good connectivity to importance, and I cannot stress this enough, the importance of milestone screenings at specific cadences or ages. Those have been proven to catch things well before they progress into a place that you're going down a road that becomes really challenging. So as an example, we've got some great stories where we've partnered up with mobile screening units, as an example, in communities. Mammogram screening unit. We had one client that we were serving that went through a mammogram screening unit, and thank God. It's not what you want to hear or learn about, but she was able to catch it early, and so that's a blessing. We have somebody else who has shared with us, because of the connectivity, as an example, to fresh fruits and vegetables and really a variety of whole foods. She was able to better manage her A1C levels, better able to manage or lessen her rate of body mass index, and as a result was able to then participate in eye surgery, of all things, that she needed desperately and couldn't because, as an example, her blood pressure and blood sugar was just much too high. And so, look, it's not rocket science. If you talk to the older generations, your grandmother, your grandfather, they will tell you that it's the basics. If you can name the food, if you know what's in it, whether it's a pineapple or something else, it's probably okay for you and good for you at that. It's when you can't pronounce what's in it, probably not a good sign.
Yeah. We have just a short minute left. And we've talked about the successes, and it is extraordinary because each of you has created so much success within your communities. But there's also so many challenges. I mean, there's no more challenging time like the present. And, they reset our clock.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. They must have liked the question. So I would just love to hear not just the challenge, but what your perception of that, the solution to that is, right? Because, and if anyone in this room is possibly part of your solution, speaking directly to the audience, what that could be. So let's just go in reverse order because it always seems fair to flip it.
Sure. So, as I think about this more broadly as a system-wide issue, one of the challenges is data. Right, for somebody who's reasonably nerdy, and I'll admit I'm a little bit of a data geek, there may be data on the same person. Let's call this person Mary Lynn. Mary Lynn may have data, at a pantry level about her health. Mary Lynn has data with her physician at a certain level. Every place she goes within a, quote, health-related system has different data. And so in many cases, there isn't a full profile of a person that exists and is easily accessible by the full scope of people who are there and accessible to help Mary Lynn. That's been an ongoing challenge here in New York City and New York State. Is there
a solution?
Yeah. So part of it is really laying down the swords, to be perfectly honest. There's intentional competition, very unfortunately, especially in the healthcare space. Everybody wants their own electronic medical record system for different reasons. Part of it, quite frankly, is about competition. So it's about opening up the dialogue and finding spaces where you can share rather than making the roadblock why you can't or why we shouldn't.
Okay.
So pushing past roadblocks for shared conversation.
Jilly.
I'm going to talk about the sheer need when it comes to people who need emergency food in New York City. In 2019, we saw 25 million visits to food pantries in the city. Last year, we saw 47 million visits. And we haven't yet seen the effect of the $187 billion that are being cut from the SNAP benefit program.
Solution?
Layer on top of that, this weekend, the federal government announced that next month will be the last food insecurity report issued. So that will serve to mask the number of food insecure people. Solution is let's all just be hyper aware over the coming years that our neighbors continue to need help. And we'll do all we can, as I know the food bank will, to get as much food out to them as possible.
Awareness and money.
We need support to do
Need
that.
support.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure. So within the Veterans Affairs, I'd say our barrier or challenge is that not all veterans use the VA for healthcare. And we do know that research shows that veterans who use VHA for healthcare have better clinical outcomes than veterans who don't. So if any of you encounter a veteran wherever you work or whatever nonprofit or wherever space you are, to encourage them to go to the VA and enroll for healthcare.
I know, I gotta be super fast.
Yeah.
So the problem for organizations like mine, capacity. Capacity translates into dollars. This story makes y'all feel good, that's great. But like we get online, we try to get that story out there, and we know that these apps are the op. They are suppressing any kind of thing that is a social justice driven and minded. So the solution is fund organizations like mine. You can start with mine. We're trying to get a chicken coop. We've been asking people to donate $10. You can get online right now, donate $10 so we can get a new chicken coop for the Bronx baddies. And fund other organizations like this.
Coop?
A chicken coop is like $5,000. It's not a lot of money, but it, you know, for like 50 hens, that my girls need a mansion. And so fund other organizations, particularly making sure there's an attack on DEI right now. Look for the organizations that are being led by people who are women, who are black, who are immigrant, who are not white, who are disabled, who are queer. Fund those folks. Also, be out in these streets, y'all. Be out in these streets.
All right, thank you all.
Keep giving them a round of applause and donate to all of these organizations whenever you can. Thank you all so much. You're amazing. Really wonderful group of women. Thank you so much. Before I invite my next guest up, I want to thank a few more of our in-kind partners: Wild About Sprouts, Lundberg Family Farms, Certified Origins, and Farmers Bridge. So we have a reception coming up, so please stay. It's delicious, and you'll have a lot of fun. I'd now like to welcome Brandon Lombardi, the Chief Sustainability Officer for Sprouts Farmers Market. Give him a round of applause. Before we begin, these shoes. Great job.
Oh, thank you so much. Wow, I knew I was last in the day. Needed to spark people up. Yeah.
Brandon, thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you for the work that you do. What stood out most for you today from what you saw and heard?
Oh my God, what an incredible day, huh? Can we give Danny and Food Tank crew a great round of applause?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
What incredible panels, you know, really educational, wonderful, inspiring people doing great work. I really encouraging, right, from the First Nations Development Institute, you know, really giving us the wisdom around, you know, shifting away our cultural mindset from individuality to, you know, collectivist community mindset. You know, we forget those things living in this society. It was encouraging for me to hear that, you know, medical schools are now investing in culinary programs and bringing that kind of education to doctors, which was sorely missing for so many years. So it's really nice to hear those stories, and then to hear, you know, from the nonprofits, you know, with boots on the ground, bringing this to life for the kids in our communities, where it starts, and changing habits for a lifetime starts at that age. And so the great work that's being done. I mean, you know, great personalities like Tanya.
Right.
You know, I mean, just fantastic to know that these people exist and they're doing this work. So again, really encouraged and really happy to support, you know, the panels today. So thanks for putting this together.
Oh, thank you. You know, we heard from the Congress member about the important role that the private sector has to play right now because of what's happening in the world. And you have such a unique opportunity to advance all that we've been talking about, including, making it easier to have access to healthier fresher, better for you foods. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the private sector is critical in bringing food as medicine to life. If we can, I'll use that term. I really liked the term somebody on the last panel had around food is health or food as health. I thought that was a great way to frame it. But, in the private sector, be it healthcare, tech, retail, food production, I mean, it really ranges the gamut of industries. And I think that it's critical that we all come together to do our part as private industry to make this come to life. So I'll just speak to the retail piece, and I'll speak from Sprouts' perspective. So Sprouts is a natural and organic retailer with 460 stores in 24 states, and we've been around a long time. We started as a fruit stand in 1943 in San Diego. So this kind of notion of fresh, nutritious food, access, it's in our DNA. So we can speak with some authority on the topic. I'll just tell you how we think about some of these things, some of the things that we're doing that I think help advance food as medicine. So, first, curating an assortment of fresh, nutritious, nutriently dense food. I mean, that's what our merchants focus on day in and day out. That's what our customers look for. And that's how we think about bringing access to good food in the communities, and of course focused on the taste and the delicious aspect of the food, so that the eating experience is good and people want to enjoy that type of food. And we focus highly on innovation because this is a quickly shifting space. So last year alone, we have 25,000 SKUs, call it give or take, thereabouts, and last year we brought in 7,000 new SKUs. That's not incremental, but that's changing out, to give you a sense of how much we change to try to make sure that we're staying up with the trends in healthy eating and making sure that we're in front of the consumer where they need to be. So that's kind of just go to market, how we think about advancing health in the communities we serve. Second, I would say leaning in really hard to organic, local, regen ag. It's good for people and the planet. It brings more nutrition content to the food as well, supports local economies. Last year, we bought $250 million or so in product from local farmers, which we love those partnerships.
Yeah.
We think it not only supports local communities, it's a win-win. It's better for the farmer, less food waste, more margin for the farmer, better margin for us. We can buy at a better cost. So it's kind of a win, and it's fresher for the consumer. It's less shrink for us. We self-distribute produce, and so having less miles on the road really helps that eating experience and helps the consumer enjoy and be integrated more into fresh produce because it's a better experience for them. And then the organic piece. So it's interesting. Years ago, there was more supply than demand in organic. Now there's much more demand than there is supply. 30% of all of our products are organic, and we sell 20% of our business is fresh produce, and we sell 60% organic. And if you think about penetration in produce against a conventional retailer, it's usually sub 10%, call it 8%. We're over 20, to give you a sense of how we lean in on fresh. And regen, obviously that's needed for us to survive, right? With the UN saying we have less than 60 harvests left in topsoil. So that's one that we lean in hard to make sure that we're bringing that more to market for our consumer and for the benefit of farmers, ranchers, and the planet. So that's one. Let's see. And then talking about it. So how on-pack, online messaging to build trust with the consumer. So there's, to reduce skepticism, get them familiar with it, educate them on the benefits, and give them, kind of meet them where they are as it relates to the healthier options. And then vitamins and supplements. Like we've got 7,000 vitamins and supplements. And the way we think about that is prevention versus treatment. And trying to take a holistic, more of a naturopathic view towards medicine. Certainly support traditional, Western medicine, but we think a lot about providing options for people who want to supplement and augment their health, in those ways. And then, we know that there's challenges with, there's knowledge constraints, there's time constraints on eating healthy. I mean, the challenges to eating healthy are broad, right? I mean, really broad. Poverty, it's really difficult to work multiple jobs and have the time to think about cooking and serving your family healthy meals. And so we got to think about solutions that that meet people, again, where they are, as I said. And so we do that, one way we do that is nutritionally dense, ready-to-eat meals that are minimally processed and kind of ready for people, and again, messaged appropriately, so they can understand that, hey, this salmon with grains versus white rice is better for you, here's why, and we make this easy for you to live. We just launched, 4 or 5 bowls, plant-based, some vegan, grass-fed, salmon, with great flavor profiles. Those are the things we try to make. Not only is it great for our consumer, but it's important for them to have that access in terms of being able to move quickly for their family and make it easy. Like I don't even know what to buy. Well,
Right.
here it is for you. It's in this section. It's in this set. Here's some messaging around it. Here's how you can find it.
Yeah.
And then our philanthropy side of the business, what we do there, which Lyndsey talked a little bit about, which we can get into. But that's how kind of some of the things we do to advance this topic.
Absolutely. You talked about, how consumers, want organic, region, local products. How does a retailer like Sprouts help create, that opportunity for farmers to transition?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the way we think about it is long-term commitments for farmers. I mean, farming is expensive. You heard from some farmers, over the last few days and today around the large investment required, the capital investment required. And there's, of course, the time to transition, multiple years, depending on whether you're going for a certification or not. And there's a question about the premium. And will I get it? Will it be there? And how difficult is it? And so the way we do it is let's make a commitment to our farmers, and so that they can rely that they'll be a purchaser for their harvest, and they can make the investments in infrastructure that they need to get the right crop. And we're really doing that with intentionality to help bring more organic online. I mean, it's better. It's better for everybody. It's better for the planet. It's better for our people. And so we're working hard to do that. It's early days, but we're working hard to do it.
No, I know. Food is medicine, you mentioned this, does not work without taste and joy. And I wonder how you help the brands that are in Sprout stores tell their story, because we don't want folks to think they're sacrificing something. We want them to think they're gaining something, because they are.
Yeah, right. Well, so we have a whole innovation team, a foraging team that works with small brands from kitchen to shelf, and we help them think about how to message things on pack. We help them think about their online presence, and we have an incredible innovation program where we have an innovation set in store, which we rotate in and out hyper quickly. Only maybe, I guess, what is it, 30% of those products make it to the permanent set. So that'll give you a sense of how much we're turning that and really trying to support, diverse suppliers, small suppliers, folks who wouldn't otherwise have access to retail, certainly at scale like us. And so that's one way we really try to work with them, because our merchants are at the front end and they know kind of what resonates with the consumer. We have the data that supports what resonates and drives buying behavior. And so we can help those younger brands really lean in on those aspects and attributes that resonate most with the consumer.
I know folks, at least in Baltimore where I live, are very loyal to the Sprouts. They love going there. It's smaller than other grocery stores. They get to know people. How does it work with, in-store staff being able to also tell the story of these wonderful foods?
Oh, that's a good question. So how many folks here know Sprouts? Okay, good. For Manhattan audience, that's a good handful. So our store is a smaller footprint, so call it like 23,000 square foot on average, and we have a low profile store with produce in the center. Again, focused on that kind of fresh, really understandable product category that everybody kind of knows produce, and so that it's familiar to them. So they come in and they see that, and then again, it's low profile, so it's easy to shop. They can understand the messaging. It's not intimidating. Big aisles, warehouse style size stores. So that's one way we think about making this access play easier for people. And so we to get to your question directly, we invest a lot in training our people. So when we do new brand launches, private label, which is focused on innovation, not just kind of commodity gap filling, we really spend a lot of time and effort and money on educating our people, giving them samples, rolling out the brands to them, holding workshops, making sure they're excited and educated on the product and can talk to consumers. But I would say the standout section in our stores is our vitamins and supplement department. We've got an incredible group of team members that support that area, and it's really an engaged consultative sale and experience. Customers come to us because they trust the team member in our store to recommend to them the right product. And it's incredible to see the engagement. And then those people go through an extensive training program with us. And a lot of them, they live this. A lot of them come to us and they've got the purple hair and the earrings, and they've like lived this, vitamin, supplement lifestyle. I mean, they're the ones during COVID saying, get away from me with the vaccine. I'm not wearing a mask. Yeah. And they're phenomenal. And they're the people that our customers trust and love. And they stop me, like if I wear a Sprouts shirt in the airport, they'll stop me. And the number one thing customers say first is, I love Sprouts, which makes me so excited to hear and be a part of something like that. But then invariably I'll get a comment like, oh, Danny, in your Bay store, like, she's amazing and she recommended this item to me, and it's been great for me, great for my family. I feel so much better. And those are the stories that you go, okay, we're touching people.
I forgot to tell everyone, Sprouts is my side hustle. I'm working at the one in Baltimore. I'm kidding.
Yeah, we've invested a lot in her training.
One of the things that we've been talking about this week a lot is food loss and food waste and its connection to the climate crisis. I know this is something that's important to you personally and important to Sprouts, really preventing food waste.
Yeah, so it starts right at farm with the commitments I told you earlier. So we try to buy the whole crop, right? So it starts there, and then our supply chain, kind of shortening the supply chain, increasing freshness, so we reduce waste there. And then in store we have a food rescue program. And poverty is inextricable from this food as medicine conversation, and food banks. I think we heard from one in the last panel, the panel before. A lot of grocers do really good work donating food to food banks. The way we think about it a little bit differently is our program is designed to donate as much whole foods as possible, fresh foods as possible. So about half of what we donate, and we donated 30-odd million meals last year alone, half of what we donate is fresh. And so if you think about, it's not the typical canned food, peanut butter jars, that sort of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Everything, is needed and welcome and good. But when you think about a program designed to drive half of the donations to fresh, we think it's truly differentiated, makes a big difference in the communities. And we have 400 food pantry or food bank partners across the country with local pickup programs to us, usually 5 to 7 days a week, depending on what kind of distribution system they have. And we augment that as well with our own investments. So, that's how we think about, that level of support as it relates to food rescue.
Yeah, thank you for that. In this final minute we have left, I've been really asking everyone this week to leave the audience with a to-do list, a call to action. Is there anything that stands out for you?
I think I'll echo what's kind of been said, right? And that's use your dollars to drive demand in organic and local, support the local farmers, and then use your dollars to support the organizations that you heard from today. I mean, they need that support, whether it's chicken coops or whether it's, supporting capacity building in school education programs. When you think about the great philanthropic, work being done in this space, community ag programs, farm to school, farm to hospital, nutrition education, the culinary programs, the experience programs where kids are learning where their food comes from. Those are the things that change habits and change health outcomes for a lifetime. So the more you can support those organizations, the more this positive flywheel will spin. So appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Brandon Lombardi. Round of applause. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Thank you.
What a fantastic day. Thank you all so much for being here. I just have a few thank yous to give. A huge thanks to the speakers who joined us. Give them a round of applause. We had incredible moderators as well. Give them a round of applause. Give another round of applause to Lyndsey and Brandon from the Sprouts Healthy Communities Foundation. Our wonderful host, WNYC. What an amazing place. Thank you all so much. A big thanks to our culinary partner, Great Performances. You'll get to eat what they've put together in just a moment. Thanks again to Arva for making the reception possible. The entire Food Tank team, Bernie, Elena, Kenzie, Jessica, Jared, Emily, Elena M, Haven, and Annie. Give them a round of applause, as well as the volunteers. So many volunteers this week. So everyone, go get a drink, get some food, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you all so much.
Don't walk your way, don't fall from the race we made.
just like a big time nothing. I look inside, I look inside, I look inside. I look inside, I look inside, I look inside. I look inside, I look inside, I look inside. I look inside, I look inside, I look inside.